Are you thinking about buying a used truck? On this episode of Driven Too Far, we're talking to maintenance expert James Sughroue about what to watch out for before you buy. Hello, I'm Andrew Winkler with Chief Carriers, and this is Driven Too Far, the truth about trucking, a podcast that helps over-the-road truck drivers balance career and family. Hey, welcome back to this episode of Driven Too Far. On today's episode, I've got a maintenance expert with me, James Sughroue. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
You know, one of the questions when we talk to a lot of guys that want to think about lease programs, they're always curious about what is a good used truck? Where do I find a good used truck? How do they go about that? So, you know, is an auction a good place to start for a truck, or is that a little bit dangerous for them?
Yeah, sometimes you can get a good deal possibly on an auction. You just got to be careful, make sure that you've got a set price that you don't want to go over. Sometimes a guy will want to get in a bidding war with you or something like that. So you got to make sure, do some research on that truck and kind of what they're selling for out there elsewhere, and make sure you're not going to go over that price.
So it's critical to kind of do the research ahead of time. Most drivers, I think, probably know what make and model they're looking for. Stuff like that. And for most of the auctions nowadays, they're kind of online, right? So I would think you could kind of see what's coming up for auction, and that would give you an opportunity to do that research ahead of time before you start throwing numbers out there.
Yep, and a lot of these auction sites, they can give you some history too, and some of the auctions that have recently ended, you can kind of look at those and see what price range a similar type truck with similar miles, similar, engine and transmission are going for. And so a lot of those auction sites will have that information, so you can get some of that information, so you go in knowing what you're looking for.
So now from an auction, thinking of that perspective, as a potential buyer of a truck, how do I know that vehicle's been taken care of? Do they make maintenance records accessible to you, or how do you do that? How do you find out the history of that particular truck?
Yep, and that depends. So some of those auction sites will have that. It depends on, where it's coming from. You want to, if you can find out the company that truck is coming from, they should have the maintenance records, and a lot of times they can, if you ask about them, they'll include that. So you can kind of take a look and see what kind of expenses that truck has had recently.
So most of the time, if it comes from a reputable carrier place, they're going to be open to sharing those maintenance records with you.
Yep.
You absolutely need to look through those. What am I looking for?
So one of the things you're going to want to look for is like trending, maintenance costs trending upwards. As these units get older, there's obviously going to be a little bit more expense, but if you look and say in the last 3 to 6 months, he's got breakdown after breakdown after breakdown, and tow bills and a lot of exhaust work. There may be something going on there that's further hasn't been quite diagnosed yet.
So as I'm looking through the maintenance records, it should really just be a file of invoices and work orders and things like that. Should have enough description on it that you're seeing what's on there. Should be dated so you know when the repair was done.
Yep, should be dated. Should be it'll have kind of a base description, more what area the truck it's in. So like exhaust or engine or fuel system, or those are the things you're wanting to look at. So
now I know in our particular fleet, and I think a lot of fleets are similar, we kind of run them at that 4-year, 500,000 mile. That's our time to trade them off. Let's just say a guy's looking for that 500,000 mile truck. If I'm looking through the maintenance records, is there certain key things that should already have been done to that truck? Should it just be PMs up to that point, or should there have been a clutch? Should there have been tires or other kind of repairs? What am I looking for there?
So it kind of depends on the make and model and what drivetrain you have in it, but like an overhead should have been done by that time. Probably around 500,000, you're probably looking at changing your differential fluids. Transmission fluid should have probably been done by then. If it's an automated clutch, they've probably already put one in it, so you want to look for that. Otherwise, that's going to be an expense that you're going to be doing here pretty shortly. Those automated clutches they're not lasting as long as a clutch on a manual transmission. Yeah.
So if you were a fleet trading something off, you knew you were going to trade it roughly at 500,000. How good are the fleets out there? Are they doing that maintenance right up to 500,000, or are they saying, oh, I think we can skip this because this one's getting pushed to auction.
Yeah, and that's I guess depends on that carrier, but sure there are some carriers that are going to go, maybe we can get rid of it at 475,000, and then that way we don't have those extra expenses. So if that's the case, if you don't see those, the overheads and the oil changes as far as your transmission and gearboxes, just know that that's something you probably need to do starting out.
So let's switch gears a little bit. We talked about the auction. There's probably some risk there. Again, if it came from a good reputable carrier that has a good PM program, you might be fine. But auctions can also be places for people to get rid of problem equipment. So you do have to be careful there. But let's say we're going through a dealership, something like that. I think of Freightliner Select Trucks and some of those type of programs. What are those dealerships doing before they're putting the trucks on the lot?
So most of the time, they're going to do like a PDI inspection. They're going to fully go through that vehicle. They're going to roll underneath of it. They're checking your brakes, your wheel seals, all that stuff. They're making sure, one, it's going to pass a DOT inspection. So It will for sure be DOT verifiable. They'll put a new DOT sticker on it generally. And then they're going to look for any major issues that they see. They may pull the drain plugs and, on your gearboxes and make sure there's not a bunch of metal chunks in there. So it's going to be definitely a little bit closer inspection than if you were just buying it from who knows where on an auction. And you may pay a little bit of a premium for that, but that premium is definitely probably worth it because you've had more eyes on that. And
right, any used vehicle is going to be a risk and stuff. But I would think, just like you said, if a dealership takes care of it, they've gone through extra steps. You just get a little better feeling and stuff of what's going on there.
And sometimes they'll even. Depending on the mileage and the dealership, there may be even some warranty that they can put on there. You can buy an extended warranty sometimes from some of these companies.
How can a driver, I'm thinking about a driver, if maybe they're thinking about buying a lease purchase or something like that from the fleet they're already working for, would you recommend they go sit down and talk to the maintenance director, somebody that's really knowledgeable about those things? And if you had a driver come to you, what kind of things would you share with them?
Sure. Yeah, you would want to share the history of that truck. I mean, when you've got a fleet to manage, you generally know those few trucks that are kind of a lemon truck. Right. And so if somebody comes, especially one of your own employees comes and is talking about buying said truck, that would be a discussion we would have, like, hey, look, this is one of those trucks that's constantly been in the shop. We've had to send it back for warranty, all these times. It may not be the best one to look at. We should probably look at one of these other ones that are a better quality truck for what you're looking for.
Yeah, so I would think if you're buying within your own fleet, that maintenance manager, they're going to want to help set you up for success.
Right, exactly.
Because nothing will make you fail faster as a lease owner, whatever that is just the maintenance getting out of control right away, especially when you're starting out. You're trying to build those maintenance funds and escrows, put a little bit away, and it just gets eaten up really fast.
Yes, it does. It can, one tow bill can eat up, $1,500, $2,000 just like that. So you definitely want to set them up for success. And, if that means a newer truck, they need to look at a newer truck, something that's got warranty on it. That could save, it might be a little bit more monthly up front, but that would save, your costs are going to be pretty set because a lot of that stuff's going to be under warranty. So you're not going to have all those extra repairs and breakdowns. And if you do get broke down, then it's under warranty generally. So that helps substantially. So you can establish your business and get, some of your escrows built up before some of those warranties fall off if you're keeping it that long.
So I'm going to really put you on the spot here, and I'm going to go back on all your years of experience and stuff. And I want to teach the listeners probably how to ask this question, the best way to ask this question. And it's if you get a chance to get in front of your maintenance manager or somebody else that's had a lot of experience with a lot of different makes and models and stuff like that, ask the question this way. James, if you were going to go buy your own truck or start your own small fleet, which makes and models would you look at first?
Sure. And, generally they're going to be honest with you. And if I was asked that question, honestly, as far as a fleet truck for, warranty, for downtime and reliability and fuel efficiency, my honest opinion would probably be Freightliner with the Detroit drivetrain in it.
Yep.
So with it having the drivetrain being the same manufacturer, everything talks better. You get a truck and you start putting different manufacturers' equipment in there. Sometimes you can have issues with everything talking, and with all the computers that we have on these trucks now, having them talk to each other is very important.
Critical.
So Freightliner stands behind their trucks as far as their warranty. They have very good extended warranties. You should be getting 7, 8, 9 miles to the gallon on that automated transmission. So that it's hands down, to me, that's one of the best out there.
I think that probably in our experience too. Now we branched out. We have some different models or makes in our own fleet. We did that for different reasons and stuff. And I'm like any other guy. You know what? I like nice stuff, and I'm attracted to certain makes of pickups and stuff like that too. But it's really about making sure that they understand that you're about to run a business.
Yeah.
You're no longer going to be a company driver. It's about the dollars and cents there, and you're gonna start this business. So picking or choosing that truck is a business decision, and make sure you're doing that with your brain and not your emotions, because sometimes the emotions and the ego get us in a lot of trouble.
Yep, sure. A new Cascadia may not look quite as cool as some of the other ones out there, but like you said, it needs to be a business decision, and you have to run that truck as a business. You can that brings all your taxes and everything else in there too. You're going to be making a lot more on a weekly basis, but that means there's a lot more responsibility to that and putting that money away too.
Think back real quick just about some of the emission changes we've gone through over the years. Is there certain years of trucks, regardless of the make, you would probably stay away from?
07 and 10 with the first ones.
Right.
It was a disaster
Nightmare.
for everybody.
Yep.
I don't know that anybody really made it through that in a unscathed. Those were probably the hardest, but otherwise, usually your first year of the emission change, you want to let them work the bugs out, because they're whether they're adding a new sensor or an additional sensor, or different variations of how they're putting the DEF in there. Usually that first year model of an emissions change, so maybe wait a year after that.
Yeah, I think the emissions stuff has kind of finally got straightened out just in time for them to come out with new regulations in 2027. So as we creep closer to 27, probably stay away, like you just said, for those first years of the changeover to the engines, because none of us know what's going to happen yet. They simply haven't been out there long enough. They haven't been tested long enough. We don't know what that's going to look like. But the trucks before that, we do. We have been running them long enough now. We have a better idea.
And something else to think about there is, so between Cummins, Detroit, some of these engine manufacturers may be coming out a year early with the 27 emissions. So if you're in the market, you definitely need to do your research and think about maybe it's this coming year that you need to start thinking about adding extra equipment, so we can skip that year, maybe 2 years of adding equipment, if at all possible.
And you and I are definitely having those conversations about pre-buying equipment so we can kind of avoid as many problems as possible. So one last question for you. Maximum mileage on a truck. What number scares you? What would you advise somebody to it's got this many miles on it, you probably should stay away from it?
The days of the 1 million, 2 million mile trucks, they're just not here anymore.
Right.
We're losing engines over the past 10, 15 years. We were losing engines at 100,000, 200,000. It was just, with all the different emissions that they've come out with, there's been issues all along the way that have caused some serious damage to those engines. But as far as your main, probably a base, 750,000 miles, you're definitely probably going to have some engine issues, just because that's if your emission system is all stayed on there, and there's not things that have been taken off of there.
Yeah. How do you know? How would a driver know if something's been deleted?
Well, so honestly, there is some people that are really good at deleting them and not letting you, so they're hard to tell. Some of them are blatant about it. So like if you see black soot rolling out the exhaust like they used to, it's either deleted or he's got some serious issues, because you should see no smoke whatsoever coming out the tailpipe. But some of them, a lot of times what they'll do, they'll take all the components off and hollow them all out and put them all back on there so it looks exactly like it did before. So it can be difficult. Getting a reputable dealer to look at it, might be a good option for them. But and sometimes they'll just take all that stuff off, and they don't care what it looks like.
Is there such a thing as a driver wanting to have that truck tested, whether you take it into shop, put it on a dyno? Does anything like that do you any good?
Yeah, you can. Dynos, I don't know. It's been a while since I've dealt with a dyno, but I think probably like $500 to $1,000. You can probably get it dynoed, and yeah, that's going to tell you what it's doing while you're pulling down the road. So when you're under a load, when you're really working that engine, does it start smoking? Do you start getting more blow by when you're going 65 mile an hour down the road and you start pressing a hill? That's going to show up in that dyno, and the dyno can monitor all your engine parameters. So it's definitely, if you're looking to do a huge investment, it's definitely something that's worth doing.
Money well spent.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you joining me today. I think that was a great discussion about where drivers can start if they're thinking about buying a used truck, and hopefully you gave them some things to think about and some good advice of things to stay away from.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Driven Too Far. Before you buy a used truck, check out our checklist in the show notes below.